All right, so in this explainer, we're going to dive headfirst into a really fascinating and, let's be honest, pretty complex theory from our source material. It puts forward this idea of a hidden architecture that's supposedly running our entire global system, and it suggests that maybe, just maybe, the world doesn't work the way most of us think it does. So let's get right into it. Right off the bat, the source material just drops this bombshell of a question on us. Is your country a place on a map, or is it a corporation on a balance sheet? This one idea is really the key that unlocks this entire journey we're about to go on. Okay, so to really get our heads around this theory, the source says we have to do something really important first. We have to split two ideas in our minds. There's the physical land, and then there's the administrative thing we call the country.
And this slide right here breaks down that core distinction. On one side, you've got the land, the actual dirt, the ground. But on the other side, the source suggests there's this entity. This is the country acting as a kind of corporate wrapper, an administrative layer that's there to manage resources. And get this, the source even hints that the word country itself is a clue, as in accounting house for assets.
So, if this whole thing is a global system, how does it supposedly run? Well, the source material describes what it calls a corporate global engine, and it's apparently powered by three very distinct, very interconnected pillars.
Now, according to the text, these three are what it calls sovereign states within states. First up, you have the City of London, that 1 square mile inside London proper, acting as the bank, controlling all of global finance. Second, there's the Vatican, which provides the law, the sort of moral and legal authority that's all rooted in trust law. And third, you have Washington, D.C., which acts as the muscle, bringing the military force needed to enforce all of the system's corporate contracts.
And here's the kicker. The source makes it really clear that these three hubs aren't just doing their own thing. The claim is that they form a completely self-contained, closed-loop system. It's like the operating system for the entire global grid, handling everything from the money to the laws to the enforcement. Okay, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds, well, pretty abstract, right? But the source claims there's an actual paper trail. It points us to what it calls the cold, hard receipt, a tangible piece of proof you can look up yourself.
Yeah, the source is basically saying, hey, this isn't just some wild theory. It claims there's documented proof out there that nations are treated just like commercial entities, and that you can find this proof in a very, very public place.
So what is this receipt? What's the one piece of data that the source material points to as the linchpin for this entire argument? It's this number, a CIK number. That stands for Central Index Key. And it's what the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, uses to identify corporations and individuals who file disclosures with them. And boom! This is the slide where, according to the source, it all clicks into place. If you look it up in the SEC's own database, this CIK number is assigned to the Republic of South Africa. It's classified under SIC code 8888, which is literally for foreign governments, and it files an annual report, a Form 18K. The source argues that this right here is the evidence that the country is legally registered and operating as a commercial entity on the global market. All right, so we've been looking at the big picture, the macro level, but now let's bring it all the way down to the micro, because the source doesn't just stop with governments. It claims this corporate structure has profound, direct implications for every single one of us. And this is where the source puts forward a really radical idea about the birth certificate. The claim is that it's not just a record of your birth. It's that it actually functions as a security or a title, a financial instrument that takes a living person and creates a legal trust or entity. And this entity, this legal person, the source claims, is then used as collateral. So in this framework, what's your role? Well, according to the source, you are viewed as a legal person, which is basically a corporate fiction. Your time and your energy, those are treated as inventoried assets. You essentially become the human capital, and you're the guarantor that's backing the massive corporate debt of your nation entity. But here's the thing. The source doesn't just describe this huge, complex problem and then leave you there. It actually proposes a solution. It lays out a strategy for, as it puts it, interfacing with the firm without being absorbed by it. And the whole strategy really boils down to this: separating that public person, the corporate fiction created at birth, from your private self. The method it proposes is to establish a private trust. The source describes this as a separate legal entity that acts as a jurisdictional shield, and it allows you to operate on the land instead of inside the grid.
So how do you do that? Well, the document outlines this kind of three-step escape plan.
First, you establish a private trust to create some corporate armor for your assets. Second, you use new technologies like self-sovereign identity, or SSI, to actually own and control your own data. And then there's this third, more, let's call it, esoteric step, which it calls sealing the session at 12:05 a.m. It's described as a daily ritual to consciously log out of that corporate jurisdiction.
And this quote right here, this just perfectly encapsulates the entire philosophy. The source calls it a jurisdictional shield protocol. It's like a declaration of your status. You're acknowledging the republic by its SEC number, but you're also clearly stating that you are not its inventory, that you operate privately on the land.
And that brings us to the end of this deep dive. From corporate countries to birth certificate securities, this source presents a really complex and, frankly, a very challenging view of the world. It leaves us with one final, big question to think about. In the system it describes, are you just the inventory, or are you an architect? Thanks for joining me for this explainer.